out of his atheism, right? I think many Christians think that how we approach skeptics would be, our first conversation is to convince them that there is a God and, throw all of these arguments their way. But do you think also from the encounters that you've had in your studies, in your book, that is actually not as effective, and that the more effective way is just really to build an authentic relationship and genuinely care about someone versus trying to jump the gun? You mentioned also that it was him that initiated that conversation about God. Is that something where believers just develop that relationship? There's a saying that there's the four gospels, but there's actually the fifth gospel, and we are the fifth gospel, right? Is that something that you would suggest to Christians trying to reach out to skeptics, maybe to, don't try and pressure yourself right away to, convert this person. Just genuinely get to know them, be kind to them, sit down with them, listen to them. Welcome to the Revo Report. We're inspiring faith with reason and reason with faith.
I think, yes, all of the above. I believe sometimes we see, what is the phrase? If you have a hammer, everything becomes a nail, and you want to approach it, just hard. But just like we as Christians are all very different, our atheists are all very different. We come to our faith, our beliefs in different ways and for different reasons. And I think the first thing to do is just to really get to know the other person, listen, understand what they think, what their objections are. Oftentimes, again, we're just putting the cart ahead of the horse. Cart ahead of the horse, instead of really taking the time to get to know, are they even open to the idea of a conversation? One of the biggest questions for me in terms of openness and approach was, why did someone, or what is it that allows someone to become open to the possibility of God? Is it something rational? Is it something other? And that informs how you engage, right?
Okay.
So if somebody is really intellectually driven, which ended up, if that's the thing that is very important to them, say somebody is a technologist, physician, scientist, and knowledge and information it's who they are, it's how they roll, it's how they think, and that is on the forefront, then it may be good to engage in a conversation that's more intellectually driven if they really are truly interested. About 20% of those that I studied were really driven to find intellectual answers and wanted to engage from the beginning on that. It was in one of two ways. One is that if they're, say, scientifically minded and they're coming to some information, or they're asking the bigger questions. Well, how did everything come from nothing? Did organic life, start from non-life? Where do we get the information in the cell? It's incredibly sophisticated. This explanation doesn't seem to make sense to me. Where do we get objective moral values and duties? So there are those people who become dissatisfied with their own intellectual framework for reality, because without God, if you're in an atheistic worldview, that's very reductionistic. So all of your answers have to come within this determined worldview of closed cause and effect. You can't seek answers outside of that. So it's really odd to say everything came here in a sophisticated, beautiful, diverse way from nothing, for no reason, and there's no purpose, there's no design. That's counterintuitive. So you're having to buy answers like, well, it's design is an illusion. And you're thinking, what? That doesn't sound very sophisticated or rational to me, or my own free will, or my consciousness, or my own human dignity, or those kind of thoughtful things. So there are those people who are either intellectually dissatisfied with their own worldview, willing to look outside, or sometimes even gently confronted with strategic questioning. And you can play on that intellectual playground, and they're ready to go. But 80% of them, believe it or not, became open to the possibility of Christianity because something about it was good or attractive. They had a felt need. They saw someone who had life that was a quality of life that was better. That's why they're living in a world. I heard a little tweet the other day, a scroll of a young woman saying, "Is this all there is? Is this really all there is? Yeah, I'll date somebody and then I'll get married and then we'll have a family and then I go to work and then we become grandparents and then you die. Is this really it?" And I think some people are honest enough that their life is empty. Of course, we're living in a world with a lot of meaninglessness and meaning crisis and emptiness and trying to figure all this out, and is posing and pretending, is that really is what it's all about? What about all this, the darkness that I'm experiencing when I'm by myself? And what is that? And so a lot of people, about a third of the people in my study actually were willing to say, is there something more? Is there something else? And there were also, what's an astounding statistic from my study, as well as Joel Furches, is 82% of people in my study met a Christian that showed them a better quality of life, that presented to them good reasons for belief, that intersected their life in some way that presented an embodiment of the gospel, hospitality, warmth, love, care, showed a life of meaning and purpose, pointed them in the direction of God. It's significant, our presence in someone's life. You don't know who's watching, who's listening, who's observing. If you bring them in so they can experience something different. But there comes a point of essentially felt need, or through a crisis that can happen, that someone is going along, they're satisfied, they don't need God, they don't want to hear it from you. It's not anything they need nor anything they want, but sometimes a health crisis, a divorce, a relationship breakup, a financial crisis, things get unsettled, discombobulated, if that's a word you use in Toronto. But things get upset, and so their way of coping becomes it becomes viable in terms of on the table. Is what I believe enough to help me resolve this crisis? Can I make sense of it? Because at the end of the day, whether it's intellectually or in our own lives or our ideas, we all want to make sense of who we are and how we move in around the world. And so if our worldview is not satisfying, if it's not making sense, whether intellectually, existentially, experientially, then someone can become open. So back to your question, what is the best way? Is, first of all, like you say, be involved, be present in someone's life. Because oftentimes they won't be interested. They won't need it. They don't want it. They don't believe it. But when questions come, I was going to say it this way, when someone becomes dissatisfied with their own worldview, they'll become open towards another. Because at the end of the day, we are all human and we want to be satisfied, to make sense. We are meaning-seeking beings who are trying to make sense of reality. All of us trying to find our way. So the most important thing is to be present in someone's life so that you can be there when a crisis comes, so that you can show them an embodied way to live that's different than they know. Be prepared so that you can start to engage in a meaningful way with questions that they have. Be prayerful, of course, but yes, being present, I think I can't say that enough, being present in someone's life, but yeah, establishing a relationship, a rapport, a sense of mutual respect and trust is critical. Yeah, not to berate, not to pound, not to, tell them they're going to hell, not to, if you don't, it's because, as you know, it's easier to build bridges rather than walls, to make it approachable, make it accessible, make it easier to ask, make it easier to wonder, to connect. Yeah.
Wow.